Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, December 31st, so we're right on the new year. Um, it's not video game related, but we'll just throw it out there. I don't believe Betty White ever did any voice acting or anything for video games, but TMZ and people saying that she's passed away at the age of 99, which is a plausible age to reach. And frankly, the last few times I've seen her, she's not even been able to stand and uh, seems to have been pretty old. I think, personally, the fact that Betty White was still working for well into her old age, while they will often try and portray that and say that as she wanted to continue to work, which maybe some of that is true, the truth is the healthcare system under the SAG-AFTRA rules, as I understand it, is incredibly bad for older people. There is basically no retirement, otherwise you lose your health care. There clearly should be a pension system, and the SAG-AFTRA union in particular is terrible about even thinking about that. It's only interested in the new young actors and uh, really supporting them, whereas the older actors kind of just constantly have to take worse and worse roles just so that they're working, just so that they can get their health care paid for. It's ridiculous, and it's ruined many a career. Um, it was very commonplace to see that happen. And I don't even feel like it's so much the fault that the actors didn't know how to save their money, which almost certainly they didn't. But I didn't see Betty White out there buying $1 million McMansions or anything like that. Uh, and at a certain level, she should have been forced into retirement with a big fat pension and full health care for the rest of her life. Betty White worked in TV um, for decades. Almost certainly more than 30 years. 30 years is usually when you have a very nicely vested pension. Uh, but yeah, the actors need to be supported a little bit better. And in fact, it's such a weird thing, particularly with actors, that if you're just in like one big movie or one successful TV role, like even that should probably immediately qualify you for some form of health care for life and pension. Uh, Something that could give you close to a livable wage. Maybe not a livable wage in California. Maybe they all have to go and retire in Florida or retire in the middle of the United States or something like that. But it should guarantee you for life, and residuals definitely don't do that. You get pennies on the on what you're supposed to be earning on residuals because of all the ridiculous Hollywood accounting, and that's why the union should be protecting them and isn't. The SAG-AFTRA union, I don't think, is particularly good at all. Pretty corrupt. At one time, when it was just the Screen Actors Guild, um, they had a better contract, I hear, but not a great one. Obviously, because Betty White would have been around when it was the Screen Actors Guild, and when it was the SAG-AFTRA merger. Yeah. And since most of the roles that Betty White was playing were for Betty White specifically, I don't think she really, in her old age, was taking roles from other people. Maybe other old comedic actresses. Um, yeah, there's there's some weirdness around all of that and sadness around all of that. Let's just go ahead and replace this. Alright, for the accountability section today's going to be once again a pretty short one, as it is the end of the year and really no news is happening at all. I didn't play any Fallout 3, but what I did do is get, for the most part, the macro to schedule and automate, or mostly automate the scheduling of videos to work at the level I find acceptable. Sometimes, on a rare occasion, it glitches out after, in like 1 out of every 100 runs, but most series don't even have 100 runs, so that's a acceptable level. But yeah, and that's almost what you would expect to have happen because of just YouTube and web pages taking different times to slow down to load things. And the good news there is, even though it's mostly automated, I still have to watch it, so there is infinite room there for bug checking and tweaking if I think I can improve it. There's kind of a limited amount of things I can do, though, so I think it's probably as good as it's going to get. The only thing left, specifically, I added code to not publish Shadowverses on the weekends. So now if you're subscribed to me and you get all notifications, even at that point, if you'd clicked the bell and said give me all notifications, even at that point, I don't think the rerun Shadowverses that air will get notified to you, which means now my channel going forward well into 2023, because I was able to schedule so many Shadowverses that it let me schedule deep somewhere around September 2023. So if I die tomorrow, if I get hit by a bus, at least you could get Shadowverse reruns airing on my channel, so it won't look like a dead channel for at least a couple years. There is still setup work that has to be done by humans, so particularly if I do a spotlight on one game and just do one episode, like the macro there doesn't help at all. Wouldn't even use it. I guess we'll collect these packs and then we'll go open the packs. But it will help with any longer running series, because you'll do that initial setup and then use that as the template to copy all everything else. I still did not really play off screen this Shadowverse, which, yeah, it's just not really a concern at the moment to spend time on Shadowverse. The other thing that occurred to me late in the night last night is that I spend probably not a full hour, but I spend some amount of time going through the Twitter feeds. Like, you hear me do it at the end, and that's when there relatively couldn't be more than 3 or 4 hours at most of new stuff. Less than 4 hours, actually. I don't usually do 4-hour streams for Twitter feeds, but at the beginning I'm doing that times not 3 hours or 4 hours. I'm doing it times 2 days, so it takes that much more time to go through the Twitter feeds, and it is programmable actions. And it hadn't really occurred to me is that, like, now that I have this optimization that will let me schedule videos to the point where I can imagine I will catch up, and then when I upload an entire series to YouTube, I will have it immediately scheduled, and there will just not even be backlogs as far as things that need to be scheduled. And that's why I'd been putting off particularly scheduling Shadowverse episodes on the weekends, is because that had been, wow, I logged in just at the right time. I've almost certainly missed many days of daily rewards, but it's not like the daily rewards are particularly good. They're giving you like 40 cents. You'd have to log in for 3 days to get even enough to buy one free pack. Let's try this again. So yeah, I think I can make a macro that will at least open the tabs for me. Instead of using the extension to check for duplicate tabs, I'll use the macro to check for duplicate tabs, which actually won't be much of a problem because it will just create an entire array of links from what's on Steam and Gamatsu, GameDeveloper.com, and Video Games Chronicles or Video Games Chronicle.com, whatever the name of that website actually is. It's very confusing. And I'll make each one of those separate subsections in particular. That way, if I decide to do a new website, a new Twitter feed, then we can eliminate it very quickly. Just comment out the commands to run through things. I looked up all the answers to the puzzles. Like, I was legitimately able to do the 2 beginner puzzles, and then I looked up all the answers for the inexperienced and expert ones, and honestly I couldn't tell you how to actually solve any of these. That they're all fairly complicated 5+ card combos. One of these last ones, either this one or this one, I think it's this one, once again requires randomness based on the YouTube video I watched. So even following the instructions, unless I just was really not paying attention, it still didn't work. Like, I had to rewind the YouTube video and do it a second time. So yeah, these puzzles still kind of suck. What can I say? And I'm not even gonna try to go any further deep into that. We need to try this deck. So, quest missions from 10 turns using a trial deck with 10 defense. Alright, which these are trial decks. Which, okay. We'll start with Swordcraft and see if that works. If I could just win in one game, that would be great. And get all the quests done, that would be great. Also, I would say in this potential new macro that I'm thinking I might spend most of the weekend on, that's probably the only way I could open Steam pages and not know what Steam pages I'm actually interacting with, is to start by the What's on Steam Twitter feed, say give me all the links that you're linking to, open each one of those links as a new tab, change that page that you just opened from Steam specifically, and change it to move the Steam page around and move some stuff around so it just visually looks better. There is a certain extent here where it's not crazy to potentially think about changing Steam completely. Like getting rid of the blue look, getting completely away from it being interconnected to Steam, and instead just using what's on Steam and Steam as your source for information, but presenting it more as your own product, as you might see something like a mainstream CNN or Fox News or anybody do. Like most video game journalist sites, even they type things up and make it look differently. They don't just embed in a frame, as it were, and show off that frame as their own website. I don't know if that's because there's real legal reasons for that, or if that is just simply
our sacred forest.
Simply the way they do things. But yeah, getting away from the blue Steam pages would maybe have a more consistent visual for these streams. But I will also admit that I'm definitely considering just, is there a way to kind of get rid of the Shadowverse part of this and the card collectible part of this stream? Because if there is, I would like to investigate that instead of just replacing Shadowverse as with some other new company.
Hey, let's play.
A new game. I also looked at, even though I didn't play Fallout 3, I looked at like all the quests in the main game of Fallout 3, and I am rather shocked that I've done almost all of them, and that so many of the quests, particularly the unimportant side quests in Fallout 3, are go nowhere quests. It's like the best example is there's a person, he asks you for drugs, and everybody around him says, yeah, he's a total addict and he's gonna die someday. You'd think that there might be some quest there to talk him out of using drugs, turn him around, help him, or even like steal the drugs from him if that was your goal. But no, that's not what happens at all. The entire quest is simply there to give you the one and only option of losing karma if you want to play as a negative character. So your options are to either completely ignore that side quest and just never talk to that person again, which is not really an acceptable option in any game. Not interacting with a part of a game is not an option that you should ever offer. There should be a good branch and a bad branch, and clearly those branches are missing. So you either never talk to the person again, or you give him drugs and he dies, and you lose karma. Then there's another point where, I'll just say in Tenpenny Tower, even the good option, in which it seems like you can convince the humans and ghouls in Tin Pinning Tower to live together, if you leave and come back in a few days, you find out that actually the ghouls still kill all the humans in Tin Pinning Tower. So there actually is no good option there either. Destroy 3 random enemies. We're not at a rally count though. So you play this.
Resolution in my right hand, might in my left.
And then you
Two
do
blades in one
this.
go.
And then you hope this hits that. And I guess you do that.
You smell
I guess you do
suspicious.
that. I was supposed to win in 10 turns or less also here, so we may somewhat struggle with that.
I never get a chance to speak.
So when I do get back to Fallout 3, there's kind of going to be a reckoning there where I'm just shocked. I would have thought that there's I'm shocked that there's that.
You like the cold?
I'm gonna rest for a bit.
The honor is all mine.
I
I'll take this
hit
one.
that one,
Was I bad?
that one,
I'll finish them off.
and that one.
You're not getting away.
Yeah, because I thought there was going to be a lot more quests. And
Uncharted desert away.
places like Paradise Falls and Fallout 3, like there literally was one quest that I missed because I decided to just kill all the slavers in Paradise Falls, which was kind of my own personal decision versus the smart decision. But even that, like, the side quest there would have been to go and kidnap a child, and you would have gotten a special item. Also, the Replicated Man main quest. I think we can win here.
I'll finish them off.
Let's go ahead and
I'll
choose
take this
this.
I'll
then
finish
this.
them off.
Like the Replicated main on quest, you do the right thing and you don't get rewarded as well as potentially
Destroyed them.
doing the wrong thing and turning in the Replicated Man. And I will have to say, the person who turns out to be the Replicated Man is kind of pathetically too close to where that quest starts for half the players, although for some people it's somewhat far away. But yeah, it felt like what you were going to do is you were going to be told that there is a cyborg who changed his face and erased his mind, and he's just somewhere in the entire map of Fallout 3, and you're just going to run into this person if you investigate him hours and hours later, and it's just going to be this great game of hide and go seek. In reality, he's in Rivet City, right where there are 2 places where you can start the Replicated Man quest, in Rivet City or Megaton. So, I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. A lot of quests are like not even side quests that are mentioned, like the election at the Republic of Dave, for instance. How to solve that is basically you have to pickpocket and steal ballots during the election right as everyone is looking. So you'd basically have to have a stealth boy and be right in front of the person. That's okay. Reanimated enemy follower. 10 followers. 15 defense related. Okay. I guess we'll just stick with that. The thing I would say that's mostly obvious about Fallout 3 and Skyrim improved upon this. Skyrim has a lot more just random places. It has a lot better dungeons, a lot more dungeons. Undoubtedly, I would have to assume that all the A team was working on Fallout on Skyrim, and Bethesda acquired Fallout and put the B team on it. But there's some major budgetary and time management issues in the game that don't make any sense. There's ridiculous amounts of 3D models in that game that don't need to exist. The special heart-shaped beds get used 3 or 4 times. There's an airplane that gets used like once. Like a Wright Brothers airplane that gets used once as a 3D model, when that could have just been missing, destroyed, turned into dust. While you're in one of the museums, there's a quest to get a unique weapon, and the replicated man also, there's a way to get a unique skill which increases your accuracy by 10% in VATS, and if you miss it, you just miss it. Which that shouldn't be the way. It really turns the way the quests have been so poorly made, turns Fallout from being a game that you should play on your own and have your own special role-playing experience, into more of a game where you should have a walkthrough right in front of you to make sure you don't miss things. Because there's entire dialogue choices and things that you can miss. Like in the museum, there's these computer terminals with where you're supposed to type in a code from this guy named Prime, and I'll just spoil the solution to you. The only hint you're given is his name is Prime, and I didn't catch that you were supposed to be picking the prime numbers, and if you mess up, you just mess up. You can never do it again. Or at least that's what the game said. Maybe some of the patches later on have fixed that, but even at that, I would say there is not a significant amount of improvement years later in the Game of the Year edition of Fallout 3 compared to what seems to have existed during its launch window of Fallout 3. And they make all this DLC, and they give you new areas in the DLC when there should just be more quests in the main area. There should just be more reason to go to each location and gain and grow familiarity. And I'm glad that Skyrim's 2 DLC really doesn't add a lot of new locations. You're not going to an entirely separate place. Oddly, Witcher 3 doesn't learn that lesson, and the whole Skellig Isles does feel like that, even though that is main game stuff, the whole Skellig Isles section does feel like it could have been DLC stuff.
My sword will never betray you. Go forth!
March on!
Betrayal is something I'd stop them where they stand.
Right, yeah, I would have definitely preferred Witcher 3's main location to be its only location. And Witcher 3 is actually really bad about that, because you have this whole smaller tutorial map before you get to the main map. Then you go to Skellig Isles. Then you come back to the main map again. But yeah, back specifically Fallout 3. There's way too much focus on making junk and collecting junk and there's really nothing you can even do with that junk half the time. It gives you the feeling that for every piece of junk there's a schematic out there, and there aren't enough schematics in the game for that to really be the case. In the idea that there's a schematic out there that would let you turn junk into something particularly valuable.
Fastest blades in the east. Shashing. No one gets past me. No one gets past me.
Yeah, and there aren't traders out there that will trade items for you. There's a whole quest throughout the game where you're supposed to be giving sugar bombs to somebody to make a ultra jet version of the drugs, and I thought that would mean that drug sailors and chemists all over the place, and you just start finding ultra jet throughout the entire land. No, it's you have to give about 8 sugar bombs to the guy to get one to be able to buy one ultra jet. So you're basically the only person even buying the drugs. And that's not worth your effort. The only reason I even use drugs in the game is to have a weightless, valuable product that I can sell. I never actually ingest them.
You smell suspicious.
No one gets past me.
Like, and it's just all these separate ideas, all this junk. None of the dungeons feel like they were made by the same people. It feels like they gave 1 or 2 people complete control over specific dungeons, and so some dungeons look one way, some dungeons look the other way, look completely different. But there is no overarching hand that's considering how that would balance out in the game.
You smell suspicious.
Overall,
2
there you
blades in
go.
1 go.
General, we destroyed them.
And I definitely hope that this is a case where Fallout 4 is a lot better and Fallout New Vegas is a lot better. I could definitely see where Fallout New Vegas would just be better by just having more to it. So what did we not do? We didn't destroy a reanimated enemy follower. So we could do that for 100 points. Or you could just focus in on doing something else. Next, we need to win a match after at least 5 valid followers have been evolved. Win one when Tailwind starts with at least win on one of your turns where Tau starts with at least 10 defense. Win a match when your opponent has less than 10 play point orbs. Okay. That sounds somewhat doable. I could definitely go on. Certainly, I could just continue to complain about the shortness of Fallout 3 for a game that really feels like it's huge. It really isn't. Like, I think Fallout 3 in particular is the prime example. I can't really think of a better example of a game that could be abridged in my way of thinking about how abridged games need to start happening. Like, it would be very easy to make a mod that reduced the amount of rocks and trees in the overworld, and reduced the amount of nothing in the metro sections. Even if you are just going to make a mod that teleports the player, I think that would work fairly fine. But yeah. I guess the only good part about that, though, is I can say I am pleasantly surprised to find out that I'm closer towards the end of the main game than I thought I was, and there actually isn't that much that I missed when I first played Fallout 3. It just felt like I'd missed a whole bunch of stuff. I think a big part of that definitely is the fact that the game just has a lot of maps that you don't need to visit to actually do the quests. There are just a lot of places that have no connection to anything, and not even very small connections. Like, you get a note telling somebody to meet you there, or
At your service.
one of the things I would say about Fallout 3, while I'm saying a lot of things, is this whole time I've been chased by these Talon Company mercs, and I was trying to figure out what good deed I did to have the Talon Company people attack me, because they're just these randomly spawning enemies, and it was like one of the very first decisions I made, which was to not blow up Megaton City. And I don't know if that should definitely have been made more obvious. That there are these like contracts out that you find, but I was not paying enough attention to see that see if the contracts are signed by Tenpenny, as far as the person trying to kill me, or why, or Burke. Which that needed to be said out loud, that these people are going to chase you the rest of the game because you chose to protect Megaton.
My sword will never betray you. Go forth! Go forth! Go forth!
Well, this sucks.
Betrayal is something I'd rather stop them where they stand. This is nothing compared to the shame of that day.
Enemy or no, you did good.
Well, we lost on that one, so we'll have to try something different. We are, because it's New Year, getting some New Year tweets. Back for Blood says, celebrate tonight because there's more slaying on the way in 2022. What's funny is Back for Blood may at some point have a resurgence and be a decent game. They've just completely botched their release window, and they've completely killed their initial audience and their multiplayer audience, which, yeah, that means whatever good game that might exist is going to be probably a single player experience that is going to patch out a lot of the card system and the microtransaction system and all that nonsense, and focus on just giving you a couch co-op experience if you have friends, or a single player experience, which is a much smaller game that's going to be purchased by far fewer players. Devolver Digital here says this Shack News website has given Death's Door the indie game of the year, which I suppose you still want to tweet that out even if it is basically a website I've never even heard of. If you're Devolver Digital. We have a game on Steam here called Letterbound. You know, we may very well do a follow list cleanup. Interesting. Cooperative spelling game. Or Scrabble game. Interesting idea. It says single player. I don't know how you'd play this single player. Plus, I'm not sure if there really is an idea here that makes a lot of sense. I feel like you definitely have to have a decent group of friends to trust them. Because if you're trying to spell something and somebody picks up a tile you just placed down, that's going to cause conflict. So you have to kind of trust people there. Cooperative spelling is an interesting thought, certainly. So I'll put it on the follow list for the single player aspect only. The new Telltale Games put out this Happy New Year's from the Wolf Among Us, where it's a flying monkey from the Wizard of Oz drinking. Choice. This is kind of a great example of the new Telltale game still pretending like still profiting off of the works of the old Telltale in The Wolf Among Us, but not really having anything new to announce as far as The Wolf Among Us 2. This isn't video game related, but Open Broadcast Software is putting out a beta for version 27.2, which will support for source blending modes, which would be interesting if it's going to work the way I think that's going to work. Support for AJA devices, I don't know what those are. Experimental support for AOM AV and SVT AV1 encoders, which that's obviously a software. Hotkey duplicate detection and filter search. They're trying to add official Flatpak support in Linux, which is nice. Updated CEF for Chrome 95 in browsers and supported panels. CEF is probably a security thing. RIST output support, I don't know, and much more. The much more, obviously not interesting enough to mention. So that doesn't seem like that's a huge improvement as just a 0.2 modification, but if you could blend video sources, then there is a realm there where you could do some really crazy things. I was watching this British panel show called Taskmaster, and because of the pandemic, they had to have everybody for one season move their chairs really far apart, 6 feet apart from each chair. So there's just giant stage in which there are 7 people on stage, and each of them are 6 feet apart, whereas normally they have chairs that are sitting right next to each other. And one of the things that occurred to me when watching an episode that wasn't one of the ones where the chairs appeared to be really far apart is that there is potentially going to be an entire new art developed around making live real-time composite images for TV panel shows and like game shows particularly. And Taskmaster is presented like a game show, but it really is a panel show in the sense that it's just a bunch of comedians and they aren't really winning anything, and they generally don't care, or shouldn't care at least, versus say Wheel of Fortune, where those are real people that actually are winning money. But you could certainly do the composite image with Wheel of Fortune, and some of it definitely is already being done. But a whole new art in the idea of taking someone who is sitting 6 feet away from you in a chair and another person who's sitting 6 feet away, and then green screening or chroma keying the backgrounds out behind those people and then moving them so it looks like they're sitting right next to each other, and doing that for multiple camera shots, multiple angles, having to effectively lock down every camera so cameramen may or on the shoulder cameramen may be out of the picture, or just touching the cameramen may be out of the picture, which at a certain level I think you won't lose that in filmmaking, because there's just going to be a more fluid motion in filmmaking compared to the static motions of TV. But I could see most TV shows that are game shows, news shows, anything where people aren't moving around and there isn't a lot of action. Anything that's more of an action show, you'll still have cameras moving around, and you can have things on rigs and dollies and all of that if you want, but that's not going to account for the wide range of fluid motion that a cameraman holding a camera can do. But I could also see to expansion of this, and none of this has anything to do with video games, really, because there's no need to make composite shots to follow social distancing in a video game. But I could see local news, which has usually like one anchor and then another anchor and then a weather person and maybe a sports person. So you have like 4 on the screen personalities showing up. I could see each of them just being given green screen technology, and it's not like local news was ever a huge high budget anyways. Give them green screens, have them broadcast out of their own house, work from home, or even work from different booths, and then compositing all those images together to make it look like everybody is right next to each other, talking to each other. Like local news in general is kind of the weirdest one, because the reasoning for having a human, a talking head, tell you the news versus just it being presented in voiceover, or is to mostly just keep it for the human interaction there.
You were done for.
But it kind of doesn't make sense. It's way more logical to have all news be in print, just read, but people know that then the news wouldn't be read, so it's just people reading things to other people. Anyways, back to video games. Minecraft put out a end of the year. Arguably, so far, I don't think any of these companies that put out end of the year announcements did happy holidays announcements, which you should probably do both. Then you have things like Sid Meier's Civilization here, where the Happy New Year barely even makes it in the bottom, and they're putting one very long run-on sentence here in front of just a Happy New Year, but at least it's a Happy New Year. Like, it would be so easy to realize that, yeah, you should put out a decent Happy New Year experience announcement.
No hope shall be permitted beyond this.
Any questions?
You should put out a decent announcement for every holiday.
Go away!
There is still much for you to do here.
Alright.
The real battle begins.
Just as a way of self-promoting, just as a way of making a good experience and happy audiences. Even YouTube creators put out a thank you, and it's cheers to 2022, which I don't think there's anybody out there that's making an argument that there's a war on New Year's and saying cheers instead of Happy New Year's is any real difference. That being said, YouTube creators thanking its creators is the absolute minimum they could do. And it's still not really adjusting or addressing the whole cavalcade of problems.
This is as far as you
Or
go.
this and this. RetroArch says they're happy to announce that Potato has been added to the RetroArch Steam as a core DLC. Potato is a handheld emulator. It is a monochrome handheld game system released in 1992. Let's see if we can look at that link to get a better idea. Not really sure what it's specifically emulating. Is it emulating old LCD handhelds? Is it emulating some specific thing that I have just never heard of? I can't even search it just as Potato. I need to or later. Why am I watching ads on YouTube? Let's see, we can sit here and the music, nothing will happen because I'm just playing the AI. Watara Supervision. The Watara Supervision is a handheld from 1992. It must not have been particularly big. Apologies for the blurriness, but we have to do that for content ID reasons. If I get enough content ID claims, even with the blurred out videos going forward, I'll consider undoing it. So yeah, what you can see here is it is definitely a black and white thing. The Watara Supervision almost certainly came out in Japan and Asian countries and not so much anywhere else. What can we do? with Ward. So we did this first, and then this next. And we hit this
Let silence reign.
and this. YouTube Gaming said, let's say we're hosting the New Year's Eve LAN party. What game are you bringing? Just trying to get engagement. YouTube Gaming as a Twitter feed is pretty awful. A, they don't tweet very much, and B, they're just trying to tweet engagement tweets. Clearly, the person in charge of YouTube Gaming doesn't know what they're doing, or what the goal of YouTube Gaming should be.
Ding dong! May happiness be with you.
Darn it. Well, actually, this may work.
What's important to me? The blueprints!
Let us pierce the twilight light.
Video Games Chronicle is still doing just these previews instead of actually putting out any new news. Not that there really is a lot of new news. So, it's just like Pokemon Legend Arceus may be the refresh that the series needs, which is, I mean, just 100% speculation. Draw a card. Just do this. And then do this. Then in the turn.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Here we have a game on Steam called The Last Contingency, which just looks like a survival game of no interest. $4.99 English only. Then what I want the macro to do, in case I didn't make that clear, is I want to make a macro that opens all the pages, specifically from Steam, takes the first couple of languages that it can squeeze from that HTML and puts it up top. I want it to take the price thing and put it up top. Just duplicate it. Now, arguably, at this level, I kind of would like to have it eliminate the blue background and keep everything looking somewhat white. But if it can't do that, or that's too much work, that doesn't matter. I don't. It starts just becoming a snowball effect if I just start saying, well, let's get rid of news and announcements, for instance, or I also would want it to take whatever features are here and try and squeeze that all at the top too. Like some of this stuff, like share embed, flag, things like that, could disappear. System requirements could disappear. More like this could disappear because it's always useless. A review could disappear because that's kind of useless. I could move reviews up to the top here also and try and make this more of a full screen thing. And I've done that with like uBlock Origin in a more ham-fisted way in the past. But to just straight up manually change the way the website looks would be the goal. Okay. Forward, draw a card.
My wings and feet I'll take to the skies.
That.
I shall
That.
atone.
But yeah, that's what I'm thinking about doing. it's gonna take
I guess it's time to take
a whole new level of trickery. I am shocked I was defeated there. But I guess I was meandering a lot around the idea of winning instead of actually winning. Here we have a game on Steam here called Cemetery Mary, which has a different looking art style. Basically looks like a visual novel, and it definitely feels like this might be someone who is a decent artist who isn't particularly a great game developer who wants to make a story. It kind of feels like this would be more of a comic book than anything else. It's free, English, allegedly full audio, which I severely doubt that that's true. But I'll give it a follow just to see what the reception is. Here we have a Chinese mobile phone game port that we can't do anything with, even if it did look good. Free to play, Chinese only. Here we have a game called Metal Phobia, which looks like a top-down twin stick shooter. It's tagged bullet hell. I don't know if I'd agree with that. $6.99. For me personally, when something is tagged bullet hell, I'm thinking more of a 3D bullet hell game or a 2D bullet hell game where the screen is just absolutely flooded with bullets. There needs to be, I think, at least 60% of the screen covered with bullets before you can call it bullet hell in my mind. Here we have a game called Problem Animals, which looks like nothing. $2.99, English and Russian. Yeah, if I can just eliminate the scrolling down part here. Yeah, we have a game called Dog Adventure, which looks like nothing. For 59 cents, English, French, and Chinese. Here we have a game called Through the World. Almost certainly all of these games are going to be pretty bad. Like, there's really no reason to release a game right in the middle of the new year. People don't want to spend money now. Particularly on video games. Here we have another Chinese game that's already mixed. Looks like it's probably a MOBA. Might be a cell phone port. Might not. It looks pretty, like so many of the Chinese MOBAs do. No, it probably isn't a cell phone port, but this D-pad shape in the corner is dangerous at this point. You probably shouldn't make console games or PC games with this kind of interface because it looks like it might be a touchscreen interface. It says it has English subtitles, but then it says English language not supported. $7.19 as a single player game and early access. So with the mixed reviews, I think that's easily ignored.
Please submit your request as Gawali.
Here we have a game on Steam called Split Tactics, which looks like nothing. $3.99. They're calling it a LAN player versus player. What's surprising here is that there is a category here that you can use or create called LAN PvP. There probably should be something like that, but it's weird that that exists because, yeah, you just wouldn't expect it to exist.
I'll provide assistance.
Best of luck to you.
Here we have a game called Deep Base, which looks like a low effort tower defense for $14.99. English only, really bad looking. Here we have Steam Broken. They're still using those little animal creatures. from a couple of years ago, the Zalians or whatever they were called.
There is still much for you to do here.
Here we have another Chinese only game, I'm sure. Ton of text, nothing else really. Early access, Chinese only, $5.49. Here we have a game called Pinecone Game, which
We'll meet again
really
someday.
just feels like a low effort asset flip more than anything else. Seems like you pick up a pine cone and you throw it in a well. 59 cents, English, Chinese, Russian. I suppose it's an interesting question to ask. Is it better to potentially throw a pine cone down the well than throw a say throw a penny down a well? I would imagine, yeah, it probably is better to throw a pine cone down the well, because that eventually would,
Sides are like
I
unhatched
assume,
dragon eggs.
Pierce the twilight light here.
decay faster than metal would.
Hatch inspiration and take
But
flight.
if everybody in the region was throwing down pine cones down the well, I feel like you would need some kind of animal or bacteria or something to eat those pine cones faster than just the natural rot of water on wood. Let's see.
No hope shall be permitted beyond this. A new legend shall rise.
Okay.
I'm gonna protect what's important to me.
I don't think I played quite right here, but
Come on, smile.
that should work. Here we have a game on Steam called Anima.
What a
Which-
wonderfully cruel world.
Looks like a demo more than an actual finished game. $19.99, English only. Think we can pretty well dismiss this. I'm in an interesting position today because, like, I could certainly rush and finish early, but I could also kind of stream longer today because now there's not a rush as much to
You were done for.
to schedule videos, and I was actually very close to running out of scheduled videos, but
This
now
is as
I'm
far as you go.
pretty safe. I think I'm pretty safe. I could be wrong about that. I should probably double check, but yeah, I'm not feeling the need to just try and have a 2.5 hour stream today. So we may very well do a flawless cleanup,
This chance to prevail.
but we may not. In all honesty, I may just have to go to the bathroom, and
From the start.
at that point, that's when I'll end the stream. Okay, do this.
My blade and my ears work as one.
Then that lets me win.
I pray that you will be freed from suffering.
Get 200 extra points for defeating the first 3 of them. Of course, the problem here, as far as rewards, is the amount of points you get for doing the quest is only really a first third of what you need otherwise to get the rest of these rewards, and you want to get the rest of these rewards, but you're not going to do it by just defeating each character 3 times, which arguably maybe that should be the most difficult one. Otherwise I'm gonna have to play twice as long to do this. I'm gonna have to focus specifically on playing spells, which none of the trial decks seem to be particularly focused on that, and I would have to win 12 more matches. I didn't accomplish this, I didn't accomplish that, and didn't accomplish that. And then we will try how, but if it's like any of the previous ones, these challenges are incredibly difficult, and unless I just happen to get very lucky, I won't win. Yeah. Anyways, no to anima. Here we have a Chinese or Korean or Japanese only visual novel. Animation looks fine. We are kind of on the Friday, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some adult games released over this weekend. Now would be kind of a great time to hide adult games. That being said, this one's Chinese for $9.79, and it isn't really an adult game. I also suspect, though, there's a chance that nobody at Valve is still working, so there isn't anybody actually there to approve potentially any games or very many games, and that they're just letting it pile up for the new year. This game, True Visions, looks like it's a interior designer amp more than an actual game, and sadly I almost agree with the idea of software just coming to Steam, since there isn't a good storefront for software on Windows PCs. In particular, the Microsoft software store is not a good example of a storefront, and nobody else has made anything else. The problem with that is that for the most part, Valve is not interested in being a storefront for software. And because of that, you have these weird things where this True Visions is under the all games category when it should be under an all software category, if such a thing exists. I can see the beginning of the end already. Here we have a game on Steam called Soul 3000. It's pretty easy to go through the news also when the game just pauses and lets you play. So if I somehow could justify just playing single player on Shadowverse and not playing multiplayer, this Soul 3000 is free to play, English, allegedly full audio, early access. Does not look good. Yeah, if I could just somehow justify playing the single player experience, there might be something to that. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way. Ooh. Well, I messed up.
I see that you carry out your mission.
Like, yeah. The daily quests require you to play ranked or unranked in multiplayer. They don't allow you to play single player unless I switch the daily quest to play single player. Give me single player quests.
The unknown lies beyond the clouds.
You will
Let's see. Moving on, we have Crimson Waves on the Emerald Sea, which looks like maybe a more Western visual novel. Definitely has. That's an interesting animation where people are walking around other people. That'd probably get annoying fairly fast. But yeah, another LGBTQ plus tagged visual novel. It's free. It's English only. I guess we'll put it on the fall list. I think I will probably have to have a decision-making point where I start to say no to free games on the fall list. Otherwise, the fall list is going to just get over-flooded with a massive amount of free games. And I guess if we do a fall list cleanup today, that sets us up very nicely to look at anything that has come out between, let's be generous and say September. Anything before September of 2021 now should be considered long enough to have gained a following, if it was going to gain a following. Otherwise, it's just falling out of irrelevancy. And on one level, that might be a little cruel because of the pandemic. On another level, that is, I think, just going to have to be the outcome because of the pandemic. So, yeah, there is just going to be a potential lost generation of games.
Extendo.
Oh, this is going to help me one bit.
Oh, guinea pigs, where are you?
Yeah, I would have to.
Begin.
I would have had to have cleared the board and gained health back.
Lies with you. I am such a genius.
Impossible.
He's just gonna attack and win.
Power of mortality.
Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Hideaway, which just looks like a decent horror asset flip game. I almost want to give this a chance. I'm being fairly generous today, in the sense that at least this is a different environment. Very rarely do we see a log cabin spooky game. But then I look over here and see that it's an online co-op survival horror game, so I couldn't play it anyways. Early access, $6.39. It says it has single player, but I don't really believe that so much. Gametsu did have some articles here, so we should mention this. Melty Blood Type Lumnia has a free DLC character, Aoko Aozaki, which seems to be about the most dressed down character in the series, compared to like Dead Apostle Noel. And I guess at a certain point, maybe that is a good comparison. We'll try with each of the trial decks against this main guy, and then we'll call it a day. A game called Witch on the Holy Night is coming to PS4 and Switch in 2022 on Japan.
To arms!
Which
There's a battle underway!
they don't seem to really have any real pictures there yet. Just a teaser. Is tagged as a visual novel. So, like, even at this point, the amount of visuals is kind of low. There is something to be said about the fact that almost every visual novel has a weird twist, whether it's a supernatural or magical twist or something like that. That it doesn't feel like we got too many releases, particularly coming to the West and supporting English, that were just normal slice of life things. They've fallen fairly deep over the years into cliche. So even if you were just going to give a slice of life romantic visual novel dating sim game, you would still have one of the characters just being a succubus, just being a vampire. Seems like they are ticking off a lot of boxes when it would be probably a little bit more beneficial to hold back on that kind of stuff and just every now and then tell a normal story. You see that with anime and the isekai, another world stories, where everything has just become an isekai, where you get sent to another world for no real reason, when in reality even the animes of previous generations that were set in the regular real world were almost never actually set in the regular real world. They were set in a real world that has one twist to it. Psychopaths, to use just a random example, set in kind of a real world Japan in the future, but so much of it is different that it's not recognizable to what the current Japan looks like. But you didn't need to have the main character start off in normal present day Japan and then somehow wake up in the world of psychopaths, even if that would be a interesting way to establish and explain how the world of psychopaths works, which there's a decent amount of stuff there that needs to be explained, and they just do that by simply having the main character you're following being the new person on the police team and being explained her job by a superior boss character. Moving on, games industry New Year's 2022 cards and messages from Gamatsu. So they've just kind of collected them all, and they have them all in like collapsible things, which is actually fairly convenient, and I would like to see this done more. Unfortunately, since Gamatsu is Japanese focused, you have a lot here, none of which has been translated. So I have no idea what they're saying. Even in this case, Tango Gameworks, which I guess was acquired by Bethesda, which I guess means they're owned by Microsoft now. But yeah, Resident Evil here does one in English, and Hidetaki Itsuno put out some things, and that's just a few. There is a long list here. Like Nintendo put out an Animal Crossing thing. If anything, I would definitely applaud the cheapness. If there wasn't any pictures in any of these, I wouldn't be surprised though if they actually did have pictures in all of these tweets, and Gamatsu has just compiled and removed the pictures.
We're ready to sail?
Right.
One step closer to victory.
Into pouncing
We
position.
won't give him an inch.
Right.
Ready the paw cannons.
yeah, I guess what we would want to do here is see, yeah. Here we can see there is a pick Twitter link, which, yeah, means there were pictures in some of these. This isn't a good system though. Not a good system at all. Like, so everything had a picture. They didn't link to any of the pictures. They've just compiled everything like this. They clearly didn't want to put out 56 messages. They could have done 26 messages and done groups of things. 5 New Year's messages. But yeah, you can definitely see how New Year's is a much bigger holiday for the Japanese, which makes sense. They're not Christian, so why would they be celebrating Christmas other than just as a blatant way of advertising, which is pretty much what any business is doing when they say Happy Holidays.
2 blades in one go.
You smell suspicious. Gonna have to fix myself up.
Interesting.
Scratch my post. We're ready to sail? Don't let a single rat escape.
Move out. Annihilate them.
But yeah, there's got to be a better way to present those messages to actually see them. And I guess it does highlight that if I felt the need to just follow every single video game company, if for some reason what's on Steam stopped working, then yeah, I would have to follow each company individually and try and reconstruct.
Fastest blades in the east.
I'm out of cards at this point. This guy's just overwhelming me like crazy.
Move out. Annihilate them.
Here we have a game on Steam called Hover Attack, which looks like nothing. 15.29 English, Japanese. Suppose there is a big difference between looking at these random garbage games that are out new on Steam and looking at the fall list, which is somewhat curated by me. 99 cents English full audio for this game, Shrumblo and the Magic Grumblo, which looks terrible. Here we have a game called Into the Waves, which I don't think there's a quality animation here enough to interest me. This looks just a little too rough. It is an interesting different art style, certainly very, very thin, long, lanky arms. Free, but then DLC, English and Russian, on the languages. Okay. Play, or do this.
My sword will never betray
At
me.
your service.
Enemy or no, you did good.
Here we have a game called Bouncing Bunnies, which looks like garbage. I guess one of the things I would want to do also is slow down the speed at which I open tabs if I am going to make such a macro in a program. Bouncing Bunnies is $4.99 English only, looks like garbage. I'm going to try it one more time with Havencraft, and then I'm calling it quits as far as the single player experience. I'll have to play a lot of off screen if I'm actually going to spend my time doing that. I wish there was, even with 3 screens though, there's not really a great way to split my mind in two and have part of my brain playing the single player on Shadowverse and have from my brain programming. I could think about it, but I'm not familiar enough with the language of Selenium to know its specific commands and know how it would respond. Here we have a game called Agent Stylus, which looks like garbage. $2.99 English only. Here we have a game called Falta. It is silly, I think, to try and make an art style that's even skinnier and tall and long-limbed than some of the Moe art styles that have that I've seen. I don't even know if that really falls into the description of Moe. Interesting, this doesn't support English. $2.99 Portuguese Brazil for a Falta. Moe characters tend to be shorter and smaller, but skinny and long and stretched out is probably some other kind of art style completely that I don't even know what you would call it, because it is kind of going in the opposite direction.
What fine threads you have.
Like almost it's moving towards the French high fashion style of drawing without the sharp edges, but I don't feel like that would be the right term to use either. So there kind of needs to be a
I shall atone.
new term coined.
This is as far as you go.
Here we have a game on Steam called the Con Simulator, which is simulating a convention, which I wouldn't be surprised if most conventions are dead and they don't come back if the pandemic ever does totally disappear. This is $4.74 English and Chinese. Like, conventions really had very little reason to exist in the first place. I really want to evolve this follower. Is there a way to evolve this follower
This is as far as you go.
without
Gonna have to fix myself up.
it killing? Nope, I think you do this one. Then that should evolve that one. Here we have a game on Steam called Uncolored Bob 2, which looks like nothing of interest. $2.39 English only. I think I recognize this developer as, well, oddly, no. This developer is apparently only the developer of that one game and only the publisher of 2 games. HDST Games. Sounds familiar though, for some reason. Maybe there's another developer, a very similar name. I wouldn't be surprised if it is a case where there's a developer that is publishing things under multiple pseudonyms that are just anagrams of some different letters.
My blade and my ears work as one.
Okay. Kill that guy, which seems like a smart move. Kill that guy. Here we have a game called Peculiar Tales, the Mid-Lake Pavilion, which looks like a visual novel. I don't know if I really like this art style. Seems like it's all over the place. Really? $7.19 Chinese full audio. I'll give it a chance and put it on the full list. I'm being generous today. Here we have Minano Gensokyo Single, which looks like a card game, RPG based experience. Early access, $9.99 Chinese only. So obviously that's a no. We're still seeing a lot of Chinese games, so the idea that China has effectively banned the Western version of Steam is not accurate, obviously. That's not really what they were doing anyways. What they were kind of more doing is slowing down access to Steam to make it a worse experience, and clearly that hasn't affected the release schedule, at least for the first so far.
Carry out the mission.
Here we have a game called Soul Fantasy. There's still a ridiculous amount of garbage games like this coming out that are Chinese only. Free, Chinese only. You do get dangerously into the realm of racism if Steam or Valve were to say we're not going to allow Chinese only games because our games aren't available in China. That does really make the assumption that there are no Chinese people outside of China or outside the realm of law and rule in China. Okay, this. And then this.
My blade and my ears work as one.
Alright, now this one needs to kill that one. And then this.
I'm gonna protect what's important to me.
Possible.
Here we have a game on Steam called Ejected Star, which looks like it is a Star Trek point-and-click inspired game. I'll give it a chance, although it's coming soon, so I guess I should wait until it comes out, actually. They have this Star Trek, like, Nickelodeon Kids cartoon that's very much in line, I think, with the Star Wars Kids cartoons that don't really have to be in canon if you're an adult and don't want to watch a cartoon, but in a funny way, this, I think it's called Star Trek Prodigy. It actually looks kind of fun, and I know the original Star Trek had a cartoon that was very low effort, and it was just doing the same episodes that had already aired for the first 3 seasons for the original series, and they were just animating it. But I do think there's a room for, let's see, do we want to evolve anything here?
Goodbye.
Yep. Like, I think there may have been room had they made a good cartoon like Star Trek Prodigy somewhere after, like, Next Generation in particular. They could have helped guide the Star Trek series in a much better direction instead of Deep Space Nine basically stealing the ideas of Babylon 5 and not really feeling like a Star Trek series, and then Voyager reacting to that reaction and basically just trying to make Next Generation again and not really succeeding fully there, and then Enterprise effectively reacting to the reaction of Voyager and trying to do the original series over again. I've had my fill on these. Yeah, suffice it to say, the limited extra hard elite character is still a nightmare to deal with. So I would need to play a private match. I'm basically tried to play a couple private matches to catch up, but there is this weird thing. Certainly we need to play Runecraft or Portalcraft. I guess we need to play Portalcraft. Because you're registered every day you play, you need to play every single day in a private match. And you can see I'm not really doing that. And thus I am failing kind of miserably. But also I've accomplished a lot of stuff over this past weekend. Also, they're giving away victory chest. They are stacking just everything on top of it, everything. There's an event here, there's rewards here, there's solo here, there's new solo main story content. It's just all over the place. It's driving me batty. And I guess I will just play this for Portalcraft. Here we have a game on Steam called Dungeon Runner XZ, which looks like nothing. Early access, free to play, English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Dungeon Zone. Is this from the same developer? It looks very, very bad. It definitely feels like they've just stolen the art, because you don't have this horrible black and white simplistic interface and walls, and then have a fully animated anime girl. Otherwise, $2.39, Chinese only. Here we have a game called Combo King with a K, which looks blurry. And for a second there I thought, oh, it's blurry because I have my blurry effects on, and I'm like, no, wait a minute, this is Steam, not YouTube. There's no blur effects enabled here. That is just their screenshots. This is $3.99, English, allegedly full audio again. No to that. Let's see, I don't know what we're really supposed to play here, but here we have a game called Excaliburian, which looks just like a old school JRPG. At a certain level, I'd say this widescreen effect and looks a little bit better. Like, it doesn't quite feel like an NES or Super NES game. It feels like it's faking the appearance of that, but then has put a little effort to make it look a little bit better. But only a little bit, like just a tiny fraction better. I don't think I demand every JRPG or every RPG be fully 3D. I think that helps quite a bit, but I think you can't have this massive amount of numbers and text and convince a Westerner to want to play that game. And since this is English only, I think that's a big problem for them. Here we have something called Clownfield 2042, which oddly seems to not have any clowns in it. Almost certainly a name confusion or a parody of Battlefield 2042. It's somehow rated very positively, but I kind of don't care at that point. 89 cents, English only, 7 achievements. We have in 2021, as we're wrapping up the year, we have seen the death of the achievement games, and for the most part, I think we've seen the majority of the death of the trading card games also. But where one problem is eliminated, another problem rises, and so we have also seen in this year the vast rise of specifically Chinese garbage games. It has been really, really bad this year as far as Chinese low-effort garbage games. There is definitely room for speculation if half of the low-effort Russian games of previous years were being made by the same people that are making the low-effort Chinese games, and they've just changed whatever language they're programming in, or language they're claiming the game is programmed in, since most of these games are so incredibly low effort anyways that they barely have any text.
Speed boost! Begin.
Here we have a game on Steam called Land Combat Rin, which looks like garbage. Free to play, Korean only. Here we have a game called The Midnight Wind, which looks like garbage. Early access $2.99, English only. Here we have Total War or Warhammer 3. Is it actually out? Nope. So, seems like some people are just taking the opportunity to list games near the end of the year. I guess the winter sale, I think it ended around the 3rd of January, so it's still going on, but short of looking at the curator feed, which is something I guess I could do, there's really not anything for me to interact with on that. Here we have a game called Misintelligence, which definitely just feels like an asset flip escape the room game. Chinese only, I suspect, $2.99. Here we have another Chinese game. Free. Chinese only. I potentially, if I am going down the realm of programming, here we have Revenant Spirits of Mind, which looks like not anything quite good enough. Although I kind of do like the idea of a camera and Fatal Frame take on things. It's a VR action horror game. $11.69, English, allegedly full audio. I'm going to give this a follow. If I was going to automate this process, I could start curating in a very unfair way. Like, it would be very unfair to just say, let's eliminate everything that only supports the Chinese language and doesn't support English. Like, we should talk about those games. We should see those games and not just have a program eliminate them. At certain points, that is getting down to the Twitter feed block list concept. And everybody who is for free speech has been very consistent on how pathetic it is when people put on block list or keyword block list and won't even see the messages themselves if they're trying to have a public conversation. Now, I know a lot of people on Twitter don't look at it, their Twitter feed as a public conversation, which that's kind of the demise of Twitter, is that is inconsistent as to whether or not it's supposed to be a place where you can have public conversations or not. But yeah, I think it would be wrong for me to program out things that way. It might not be a terrible idea to sort adult games out to the end, still looking at them, but putting it in its own category. If I could save myself the work that would take doing that manually, it's not a terrible thought.
No cutting in line.
Here we have a game on Steam called Feeware DVD, which I don't think it's a game I want to play. It looks like a visual mess. $4.49 English full audio. Or it claims full audio. Here we have the miserable crimson hooded girl, which looks like it's a weird looking Red Robin Hood story. $1.79 English only. I guess I can put this on the follow-up list and see if it gets any relevance. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. However, next we have a game called Last Days, which looks like there might be something here. Medieval Souls-like. A lot of buzzwords coming soon. I suppose if I get really good at programming too, I could have the follow list cleanup be integrated into that idea also, in kind of a weird way. Like because I only want to look at things that are past a certain time. I could open everything up on the follow list, look at its release date, see if it's 6 months very consistently from the time that I'm looking at it, and then close it if it's not been given that 6 months. Which, yeah, at this point I'm giving them 9 months.
You were done for. No cutting in line.
Let's see, next we have a game on Steam, sorry I went quiet there, called Rolling Balls, which looks like nothing. $4.20, English only. Going for the meme pricing, the expensive meme pricing too. Here we have a game called Cute Chess, which I bought Tabletop Simulator. I need to look at Tabletop Simulator. Just checking out and doing a spotlight on Tabletop Simulator very much potentially would convince me to never buy another chess game, with the exception of Battle Chess 1 and 2 on Steam. This chess actually fails miserably because I cannot tell the difference between the pieces. They've made them all these little cute cats, and that doesn't work. Yeah, that does not work at all. They may have like little different crowns, but from 10 feet away, I cannot tell the difference. This is $3.99 English only, so I'm going to say no to that. And then we have Project Skyscape, which looks like a VR cockpit game that actually doesn't look that bad. Early access, $8.99. I'll give it a follow. This wouldn't do anything. Right.
There is still much for you to do here.
Alright, let's do this. And can't do this, so let's do this.
No hope shall be permitted beyond this.
And then Gametsu says Yomawari 3 has an extended teaser trailer. We may have already talked about this.
We'll meet again someday.
No!
I envy you.
Yeah, I think we had already seen that. And then Komatsu has Mutant Insight hiring staff for work on a high-end RPG remake for PS5. The studio previously worked for Atelier series and Final Fantasy 15 downloadable content and more. So Mutan potentially, yeah, I can't do anything without just rebuilding my deck, and I just don't care enough to rebuild my deck. Yeah, Mutan potentially doing something there. The discovery queue, since I'm here and I still have it open, has this Operation Black Mesa from Tripmine Studios, which has been to be announced. Which I feel like this is probably going to be some name confusion and not just like a mod for the Black Mesa mod. But at a certain level, since Valve is not doing anything Half-Life, if several people want to fight over the phrase Black Mesa and make good quality content at the same time, by all means try something. Run the series into the ground, making community mods. Better to be a Skyrim than to be just a Fallout 3, Half-Life 3 that never shows up. Like, yeah. Right now, playing Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, or whatever the latest Valve released Half-Life game would have been, is probably way worse than playing Skyrim with all its mods. Here's a game called Sengoku Dynasty, but again, it's not out yet. It's an interesting idea to be kind of like in the feudal era of Japan and just be a Japanese farming survival game, simulation game. See what else. Last Claudia is some kind of mobile game port that's free to play with in-app purchases. Yeah, I think one of the more popular cell phone games, I can't remember the name though, Genshin Impact, I think, has put out a new update with more slight censorship for the global versions, which Genshin Impact has been fairly consistent around that. Here we have Mark Out the Wrestling card game, which, yeah. I think I rejected this because it's just so ugly. Like, the idea of a card game determining your moves in fake wrestling is slightly interesting, but the visuals there, it's just awful. And you can definitely see how this came out in August, and it just really doesn't have any relevancy, even though it's 97% positive. Technically, this would deserve to be on the fall list at least, but they just need to hire an artist if they're going to go anywhere with this game and just draw generic people. It doesn't have to look like any wrestlers. It could be culminations of wrestlers. What they could do that would be fairly interesting is take 2 or 3 pictures of wrestlers face on and then overlay them as layers in Photoshop and then trace the things you want to combine. So you could say, well, this is a face that is 40% Hulk Hogan and 40% The Rock. And thus not really copyright infringement or likeness. Honestly, legally, you're in the right. Precedent has been set to straight up trace photos of people as long as you don't reference that person or name that person. So if you just drew Hulk Hogan and then didn't call him like Smoke Smogan or something silly like that, just called him Dave or something, some general name, then precedent legally has been set that that's fine.
I'll make your taste buds quiver. Oh, guinea pigs, where are you?
Here's a game called Torum Online. That's an MMORPG though. Yeah, that's why that's not on the fall list. Yeah, pretty much half of these games they're showing me on the curated list are games that I've already seen. Here we have I'm on Observation Duty. This is the new YouTuber, I guess, meme game to talk about, in which it's very simplistic, kind of asset flippy environments where ghostly things happen, objects move, and you have to observe those ghostly occurrences before 3 of them happen or you lose, and you're trying to survive the whole night. It's basically just Five Nights at Freddy's, but done even lower effort, and yet it's still succeeding. Game Grumps is covering this. I know, I haven't watched any Game Grumps videos in a long time now, which saves me time certainly. English full audio. They were covering Danganronpa too, and I definitely didn't want to spoil myself on that, nor hype myself potentially into playing Danganronpa 2, which I think I did buy that, but I am not 100% sure I did. That could have slipped through the cracks.
Speed boost! I am such a call me again. Questioning God's design is meaningless.
Okay. So we've gone 2 hours.
Let us conclude.
Let's see if I can
Neither heaven nor
now
earth shall be your
minimize.
refuge.
Here we go. We've gone 2 hours. We've not really accomplished anything as far as Shadowverse. I don't know how much I really expect to accomplish.
The unknown lies beyond the clouds.
Do this. Bane Ward, Rush Drain, Storm. Let's go with Rush Drain.
How could you not understand?
Okay.
A true man.
So we have on the follow list, if we're going through things starting with H, we have something here called Hacker Simulator, which
That's enough light for one day.
I think there's enough here. It's mostly positive. It came out in October. It's not early access.
Let's open up a path.
The other one would be Thief Simulator, which also is on the wish list. So we start off on the good spot with a game we can promote to the wish list and get off the follow list. Here we have the Hagia Sophia experience. which is a VR game, so I'd have to leave it here. Also, it is arguably falling apart as nobody's really covered it. This year, more than ever before, it's less likely that I would ever get VR. In fact, this year has been incredibly bad as far as any talk of VR.
This invention could be my claim to fame.
Alright, do we want to do this one? I guess we do. Wayne. Ward and Bane.
Speed boost! Begin.
Darn it, darn it, darn it, darn it. Here we have a game on Steam called Hair of the Dog, which seems like it's kind of a point and click game. It's rated positively enough. Is it early access? No. It's free, so we'll just put it on the wish list. This is, once again, though, anything free on the wish list. I mean, maybe I should just get it. Yeah, that would have made more sense. I need to go back and look at the wish list in general. Here we have one that's called Haji VR. So it definitely feels like there was an attempt here to kind of have more Muslim mosques done in VR at the beginning of the pandemic. That concept, I think, has been completely ignored in the past year, or the later part of this year, since this was January 2021. I can only assume that there's either a lack of interest there, or like the pandemic is just being completely ignored amongst the Muslims, or the people taking Hajjs, I believe is what they're called, are just doing it anyways. Yeah, it's very important to remember, as somebody in the United States, it's important for me to remember that large percentages of the world were not helped, were not given vaccinations. A lot of them wouldn't have even taken them if they were given. So the pandemic has hit a lot of people a lot harder, and that is constantly the thing you hear, is that you in most situations you hear people that have these small perspective opinions that are wrong. Like, I got COVID and it didn't affect me that badly, therefore it won't affect anybody that badly. Or I know I have a friend of a friend of a friend who got it and it didn't affect them. It's important, if you want to be accurate and scientific, to rely on statistics and see from a world perspective as much as possible, and not fall into like what boils down to be a lot of inaccurate reporting amongst friends and family and your peer group.
The unknown lies beyond the clouds.
On both sides, like the ridiculously anti-vax still around, are hearing stories from their friend group and their peer groups of that the pandemic isn't that bad, where the ridiculously hysterical pro-vax people, of which I hope most people are not in either of those groups, but in the middle somewhere. But the hysterical pro-vax people are hearing from their peer groups horror stories that may be just as inaccurate.
Electromagnetic attack for the win!
Should I play this now? I guess I should.
Perfect place to land.
Next we have Half Dead 3. It's still early access, so we'll leave that on the follow list. Here we have Half Past Fate Romantic Distancing, which is not relevant enough yet. Like, I should be rejecting things like this. But I guess I'm gonna be more generous here and leave things if they even started in January 1 of 2021, but anything before then is gone. And anything specifically that I look at now, like Halfwing here, if I look at Halfwing and I just want to eliminate it because it looks uninteresting, I'll probably do that also. Half-Life Alyx still requires VR, and I'm still not willing to put things in the wish list that are VR games, even if they're overwhelmingly positive. It definitely feels like they created a lot of momentum with Half-Life Alyx to do nothing with it after that point. Like, sure feels like Half-Life Alyx should have been the point in which they announced Half-Life 3 is coming in 2024 or 25. Yeah. It would be fairly easy to just say Half-Life 3 is coming in 2025 when Half-Life Alyx came out and said, yeah, we're going to put a drop-dead date on it, or we're going to put, or Valve is going out of business. Yeah, and you could certainly say that. If we don't have Half-Life 3 out by 2025, Valve is going out of business, and then they could just have Steam be its own separated company. And honestly, you could do a lot of corrections to the poor way in which I feel Valve is run if you had Valve go out of business and Steam become its own separate entity.
Speed boost! Begin.
Did I overreach myself?
Here we have a game called Hanako, which is mostly positive, which is a Japanese survival horror game for $5.99.
It's time you got a taste of your
It
own despair.
does kind of look like an acid flip horror game, but the problem is they all do. So I have to put this on the wish list. It does at least look different than what you normally see. We have a game called Honey, which
Don't throw me away.
doesn't have enough reviews.
Stop right there.
We have Hanoi Puzzle Match, which barely has enough positive reviews. Let's see, 69 cents. I think I put this on the wish list, just knowing what it is and knowing that there's a decent chance I'd never actually buy this off the wish list. The Towers of Hanoi puzzle. Not particularly that complicated. Oh, and I forgot I had adult games on the fall list, so you might want to be somewhat careful around that too. Because now I'm looking at a match 3 game called Happy Quest, which, like, how many adult match 3 games does one need to really cover? Or do I want to cover, I suppose, would be more the question. Looking at Happy Quest, does all kind of look pretty family friendly and tame. Let's see, $1.19, bunch of languages. With nudity and sexual content. I think we have to kind of say no though, because I don't think there's really a story here or a dating sim element to this. So it is going to be a very minimal story. I'm actually scrolling down and reading the entire description just to see if there's something here that would convince me otherwise. No. Like, there's like 50 puzzles in it, I think is what it's saying. But yeah, Happy Quest doesn't have that whole dating sim and that relevance that Honey Pop or Honey Pop 2 would have. Plus, I would prefer to move over to covering something like the Leisure Suit Larry series instead of staying in the realm just match 3 series. Yeah, and generally I think I'm probably gonna try and get rid of a lot of the adult games unless they're really outstanding games. Like, YouTube has successfully this year not changed the rules on us as badly as it did in previous years, even though it kind of got rid of dislikes and has changed the rules a little bit here and there. So at that, I should probably take that as some consistency that they still are not going to be super happy with adult content.
Power of mortality.
Here we have a game called Harmonia, which I have no idea what this even is. I think I want to just dismiss this one. Yeah, I need to dismiss this one anyways. It came out in 2020. And so, yeah, we'll get rid of that one. Here we have a game called Hard Bullet, which is a VR game, and it's still in early access from 2020. Should we get rid of VR games if they're early access? I think you do at this point, yeah. Even though this does look kind of interesting. I'm gonna give this another year, I guess. It'll probably take me a year to get around to this. Hard Steel came out in 2021, and this was the BattleBots game. Try that again. We're really not winning. Just trying to get one review. Here we have Hard Tapes, which is mixed, which we can get rid of things. And I guess this is all going to be hard something because it's alphabetical. Hardcore Mecha, rated very positively. Is it early access? Single player. Yeah.
I bring unto you serenity.
Side scroll, hack and slash shooter.
Beg for your life!
2D platformer. Okay, well. Mob rule, particularly in this case, says put that on the wish list. I question why this was on the follow list in the first place. That I feel like by the time I would have seen Hardcore Mecha, it would have been already rated very positively, but maybe they just took it out of early access. The problem, I would say, with the idea of not having things in early access on the wish list is there's no real checking to make sure a game actually added any content when it took itself out of early access. It's very possible a game could be fairly unfinished and they just remove their early access tag. That being said, one would expect to see negative reviews if that was considered a problem. It comes down to whether or not that is something that the player's base is upset about. And we have Hardship Shipbreaker, which is still early access from 2022.
This world's whims.
Does this require VR? No. I guess I'll be generous and give that some more time. Here we have a Harem Night visual novel that came out in 2021 in October, so that still deserves some time. Here we have Harmless Dreams, which unfortunately looks like some kind of weird experimental puzzle game that has no relevancy, and looking at the screenshots, I don't think is interesting enough to justify me overruling the fact that it has no relevancy. Like, arguably, if something came out September 25th, 2020, and people cared, they would have played it and reviewed it more than 3 times. So I'm going to take that off the follow list. Plus, I'm more and more moving towards the idea of playing bigger, more recognizable games.
Such a genius.
Oh, I could have played differently there. Could have played a whole bunch differently there. Here we have a Hawthorne kind of walking simulator investigation game.
A delicious trickle of
$2.39, rated very positively. And put that on the wish list. Honestly, benefiting from just having more things on the wish list would be a good thing. It's getting fairly boring to go through the wish list every sale and realize that there's just nothing there. Hearts Island here is mixed, so we can remove that. That's why I'm definitely trying to focus more on getting rid of some things.
I am
You
such
just
a
won't stay
genius.
still, will you?
Harvest Moon One World here is mixed, and it came out September 2021. I think we can prematurely remove this because, yeah, I wasn't really interested in playing a Harvest Moon farming game, particularly one that just looks like a cell phone port.
Such a good guinea pig.
Here we have Hatchpunk, which needs more time. Haunt Chaser. it's too much of a burden to have every tab from the follow list open all the time year round. Otherwise, it would make sense to open everything on the follow list right now, and that way, as I clear out games that are open, tabs that are open, I would be eliminating everything from 2021. But yeah, what that also would do is create a scenario where every time I reboot my computer for the, let's say, 30 or 40 times a year I do that, it would reload each of those tabs and probably mess up Steam. Like Steam would think I'm opening too many tabs for my own good. Here we have a game called Haunt Chaser, which is rated very positively, but I think it is so multiplayer focused that I'm gonna have to I think I'm gonna have to say no to this. Also, this just kind of feels like you're just chasing spooky ghosts, and at a certain level, I'm not sure I want to play games where you're just chasing spooky ghosts. But I probably should give it a chance. It's funny as this is tagged early access, but it's not marked early access, so I'm gonna put this on the wish list. I need to do like one good ghost hunting game, and then whether that's Fatal Frame, which is really what it should be, or something else. And then after playing a game like that, I need to fully opt to stop thinking about playing those kinds of games. But yeah, I should give one a try just as a way of seeing if that gets me any more subscribers or views. Which I did get a new subscriber today in basically doing nothing before I even started streaming, which that's interesting. Here we have a game called Haven Park, which looks like an exploration game. It's rated very positively, so I think we can promote that. 82 is rated very positively, so we can just go ahead and put that on the follow list. I don't think it was as well received originally, but it's found its audience, or maybe it's made some tweaks. Headbangers in Holiday Hell. I guess if I was ever going to do a Christmas game, this would be one to think about, but then it just doesn't have any relevancy. And it's from last Christmas, so yeah, I think we can say no to that. Do this, and then do one of these. Rush and drain.
Accept harmony.
That was almost amusing.
I am a prisoner of this world's whims.
Here's an interesting question when looking at this game, Healing Animal. Here you have a game that's gotten 2 reviews, came out December of 2022. At a certain point, I guess if you have less than 10 reviews and you came out a full year ago, there's just not a high chance that all of a sudden some YouTuber is going to play your game and make it super popular. And even if a YouTuber did do that, that wouldn't be something that would go unnoticed by me, more than likely. If PewDiePie suddenly started playing Healing Animal as if there was actually a game here, which I don't think there actually is, I would notice that. So for my purposes, something like this is something that has to leave the fault list. Like, it just doesn't have that relevancy.
Another pointless path.
I won! I won! You've certainly ruined the night.
Let's see. Next we have Heartseeker, which needs some more time, but also doesn't kind of look that interesting.
I can't hold back. Void claws.
It's a platforming game. I don't know why I would have put this on the follow list in the first place. I'm gonna take it off.
Power of mortality.
Here we have one called Haven World, which is mixed, so that's all we needed to see. Let's remove that. Like, I really don't need to bend over backwards and try and figure out a reason to leave things on the follow list at this point. Hey, Heidelberg 1693 needs more time, although it's on its way. Hell, Architect, mixed overall. It's right in the middle of it, which is a shame because this is, I think, one of the games I actually wanted to play, so I might override this. But you know what? I'll just also give it more time. This felt like a more Tiny Tower version on the idea of Dungeon Keeper. But yeah, seems like it could use some improvement. You are seeing a 2.0 here, so maybe they adjusted some things. Try and improve it, make it a better game. But there's just not enough people there. There is also a problem on Hell Architect in which everybody's just naked the whole time. The devil's naked and their junk hanging out, and everybody else having fig leaves, which could be funny or could be nothing. Next we have Hell Loop, which was a tower defense game. Unfortunately has no relevancy and doesn't seem like it ever would, so we'll get rid of that. Then we have Hell Pages, which looks like a side-scrolling shooter, which needs more time. See if it goes anywhere, which I suspect it might very well not. Then you have Hell Shuffle, which needs more time, which is a card game. Hell's a popular phrase to use, certainly. Here we have a game called Helldorado. Which is mostly positive, but also I'm not sure, like, something I really need to cover. What's funny here is it's probably an older game, and Desperados and Helldorado, I guess, are. So that's the idea, is that if I was going to get Desperados Wanted Dead or Alive, then I need to get Helldorado, so I might as well just put this on the wish list, even though personally I don't feel like it's that interesting, and it'd be basically buy this game to spotlight it, to buy this game to spotlight it, to buy this game to maybe play it, to buy this game to play. Which, for a lot of these series, that's where it really falls under, is I'm more and more buying games as a way to own older games, just to make sure I own them, out of fear that they will go off from sale. and then 2 to spotlight, and hopefully at some point, if my YouTube channel ever was financially successful, those spotlights themselves would pay at least the $5 to recoup the price of buying those games. Although that actually has to happen at some point for that to make logical sense.
Come now, let us play together.
I almost feel like it would become an annual experience if I was to do an year of end review as far as being a YouTuber, in which I would just have to tell people don't start a YouTube channel. While it is true now is the best opportunity you ever will have to start a YouTube channel, it is also still the worst time to start a YouTube channel, because the later you put it off, the less likely you're going to succeed. Although, you know, if you have no concept and you just want to be a YouTube celebrity, I'd say don't bother trying to do that. Have something you want to say, have opinions, and a lot of people, particularly young people, fail on that first aspect where they just don't know how to, they don't have opinions or anything to say in the first place, so there's not a good reason for them to try to make content. While my takes on video games may be garbage in many people's opinions, at least I have takes. Most of the time, I would say. Darn it. I didn't realize I couldn't evolve.
Perfect place to land.
Moving on, we have Hellgate VR, which is mostly negative, so we can remove that. Which, the Hellgate series is kind of horrifically bad about being a bad series you want to see succeed. Hellish Quartet, or Quart, is a dueling game. It's rated positive, just waiting for it to come out of early access. Here we have Hello Puppets VR, which is a creepy Five Nights at Freddy's VR game, which I guess since it's VR we leave on the file list. If I was going to get a VR headset, I don't think I'd particularly be looking for I don't think I'd be looking to play horror games in VR. Here we have a game called Hellsign, which looks like you're investigating the afterlife. It's mostly positive, not early access. I guess we put that on the wish list. This might be the paranormal investigation game to play instead of a 3D action paranormal investigation. We have a Henchman story visual novel. It's rated very positively, $10.99. Yeah, English, allegedly full audio. What this comes down to is I gotta put this on the wish list, or I need to just make the decision to not cover visual novels that aren't uniquely interesting to me. And I think in this case, this is not uniquely interesting to me. So yeah, it's time to make a decision, really, when it comes to particularly Western visual novels, particularly things that just aren't going to be that interesting. So I'm going to say no to Henchman Story. Even though it follows every single other guideline. Like, the new rule added to the bottom of the list is it has to actually interest me. Otherwise, I'm opening too much of a wide gate in which worse and worse games are being covered by me just for a very arbitrary reason. Let's see, this game needs more time. This game needs more time. Let's see, Nico.
Good guinea pig.
It's rated very positively. It's out of early access. It's kind of an expensive game, but I don't consider price when looking at these things.
Don't let a single rat escape.
Here we have a game that needs more time. A visual novel that needs more time. This one, Hero Hours Contract, I don't think is relative enough. Plus it's not relevant enough. That doesn't look particularly good, so we can take that one off. Actually, not having to agonize over this as much as I thought I would. Maybe I'm just in a specifically decent mood for cleaning out the fall list. I don't even know how you're supposed to be playing this trial deck. Like the only way I'd get a victory here is to just convince somebody to quick disconnect, which my network, since I haven't messed with it yet, has been working so well that quick disconnects are far and few between. And ideally, I'd like to be able to mess with it and find that there is a tweaks I can make in a few places without causing problems everywhere else. Let's see, here we have Hero Must Die Again, which is mixed and not relevant, so we'll get rid of that. Hero Soul is irrelevant and in early access. Get rid of that. Yeah, at a certain point, something being in early access but coming out a year later and having only one review still doesn't change at all. Because, yeah. It's very possible games like this are just abandoned and left in early access forever. This looks like a hacking pipe simulation game, and it doesn't look terrible, but kind of still irrelevant. It's very possible that I am just one of a very small niche group of people that want to play hacking minigames. And even I don't want to play most hacking minigames, depending on how they're depicting the hacking. But yeah, the mini games of hacking usually are best if they are inside a much bigger standard first-person shooter game. Here we have one that needs more time. Let's see. This looks good. Hextech Mayhem Legends, a League of Legends story. It would be kind of silly to play a League of Legends side game and not play League of Legends, but I would consider that later. Let's see if this is published by Riot Forge. What else does Riot Forge even got? Nothing. Interesting. X-Tones. That's some kind of weird puzzle game. Is this single player? 49 cents, single player only. Yeah, well, that looks like a weird kind of Go game. Yeah, that qualifies for the wish list. Of course, just because something's on the wish list doesn't mean I'm actually going to buy it. Arguably,
The unknown lies
I should
beyond the
really
clouds.
consider not buying very many games going forward anyways. There's some big AAA games I definitely want to cover, but I got a lot of games. The backlog is not getting burned through particularly fast. Now that I do have a more scripted experience, it's still probably going to take me a day to schedule videos if I really let it pile up, but honestly it will take me considerably less movement and thinking, and that's the thing that was draining me the most, is that mentally it was just completely exhausting me
Perfect place
to
land.
have to copy and paste things over and over again. Like, arguably it still takes, I would say, probably a minute and 20 seconds per video to get it scheduled, even automated or mostly automated. I still have to watch it and change one field to change the episode number. But going from 7 minutes, about 7 minutes to a minute and 20 is a major savings, and just having to change one number instead of typing or copying and pasting a whole bunch of things is a major improvement. Let's see.
Booster Stargazer to the cosmos and beyond.
Perfect place to land.
Next we have Hidden Lands, Spot the Difference. Normally I wouldn't want to spot the difference game, but being in 3D, there might be something to this idea. It's rated very positive. It's also a free game, so it's very easy just to put that on the follow list. Although, in all fairness, I should just get it and check it out. Hidden Office, on the other hand, needs more time. It's just gonna load.
Be gone.
I've gone too far now.
Hidden Shelter here is already mixed, so I think we can get rid of Hidden Shelter. If you've got 17 mixed and you came out in January, then you're not going to get much more. Hideout Face Your Fears is mixed, which is kind of a shame, 'cause I would have liked this to be better. Although this is early access, so I can make an excuse there. In a lot of ways, this is just Last of Us clone, but there's kind of a shocking lack of Last of Us clones out there as far as stealth games, and arguably maybe that's the thing people don't really like, is the stealth aspects that were a part of Last of Us 1.
I'm home.
At least to some level. Here we have something called High Fleet, which is some kind of post-apocalyptic game, but seems like
I have to stop
it's
standing.
kind of all over the place.
Scouting's my middle name.
Seems like you're flying ships. I'm not sure. It's $20.99. It's very positive. At that point, I think I have to just assume that this is a ship fighter, dogfighting game that just happens to look a little bit differently.
It won't be long
Or
now.
this is
I've gone
a
too
very
far
weird
now.
experience that still people are liking. They're calling it an action strategy game mixing arcade combat, exploration, management, and diplomacy. So it almost feels more like it's probably a platformer. Why is the game screenshots just doing such a bad job about really showing you what you do? See, the danger here is if you could get 3,000 people to rate your game good, then Steam is broken at that point, and that's just completely unbelievable that all of these were fake reviews. And so I really feel like I'm going to have to just mob rule believe that this is some kind of, it's kind of an arcade bullet hell shooter. So it may very well not be the type of game I'd want to play, but I've got to put it on the wish list anyways. At a certain level, I think that is me playing that game might be a great example of trying something new.
I'm home.
Speed boost. Begin.
Which it's always nice when you can expand your horizons and try something new.
Talk more later.
Let's see. Here we have one that needs more time. Here we have one that was mixed and came out in September, hindsight 2020, which I think we can remove that from the following list fairly easily.
Scouting's my middle name.
Here we can see this one is not relevant enough, but it's close, so I'm going to give it a little bit more time. Hitchhiker is not early access anymore, and it is mostly positive, so we can put that on the wish list. And you know what, if I get rid of all of the fall list here, this Hive Swap Act 2, I think we can go ahead and put on the wish list now. We'll just have to wait and see if there's a Hive Swap Act 3. There's several games here from the same company. It's kind of a unique art style. It feels like this is some kind of webtoon or something they've made a game based on, and I think that was the case. I'm not going to investigate it enough to find out. Yeah, if I get rid of all of the fall lists right now too, that leaves me in a perfect spot to do the programming I want to do.
This invention could be my claim to fame. Speed boost.
Evolve here.
Sleep.
Hit that one. Hit that one.
I'm home.
Here we have one that's not relevant enough. This can evolve to. It's close enough though, and it's 100% positive, and it is such a unique game that I think I'll go ahead and make an executive decision to say yes to this, even though it isn't quite 30, and it has had plenty of time for that. Again, though, Tabletop Simulator might be able to simulate this ancient Viking board game, and if that's the case, then there's kind of no need for that. This one needs more time. This one, Hobo Tough Life, is rated very positively. It's out of early access. Although I question whether any YouTuber should play a game where you simulate living as a hobo, which hobo's wrong term, I think, anyways, or living as a homeless person. Since any YouTuber is dangerously close to being homeless, or in a lot of cases also. Here's a card game called Hobbs. It doesn't look particularly great. It's early access. It came out in 2019. I think at this point we can skip it. There's been a ton of collectible card games I put on the fall list, and at this point I'm kind of burned out on collectible card games. Hocus 2, I guess, comes down to the idea, do I want to play Hocus 1? I feel like I did buy this game and then wasn't particularly interested in it, or I haven't played it. Let's check. We can actually check here. 20 hours on record, so I must have played this and not been particularly interested in it. Yeah, that's the only thing I can assume here. So for that reason, I'm just gonna say no to Hocus 2. I don't feel like going down that journey. I definitely don't have memories of them doing something great with that. This game needs more time. Let's see, here we have a RPG life sim. Worth considering. Not sure I really want to play something like this. The problem with something like this is it's effectively Animal Crossing, but I don't know if I really want to play Animal Crossing. It's also early access, so we'll leave it on the follow list. Here we have one that's already mixed, so we can remove that. Here we have one called Home Behind 2. It's still early access, so we have to leave that on the follow list. Home Sweet Home Survive is poorly reviewed, so we'll get rid of that without even really looking at it. Honey, I Joined a Cult. Yeah, one of the things with my new chair is that I definitely have my microphone stand under the chair, so whenever I shake in the chair, every now and then it's shaking it and making noise. I need to try and adjust that. This one's still early access, so we can leave that. Let's see, here we have something that I guess we'll give some more time as a VR K-pop and J-pop song. Although, in all fairness, I think I can pretty much just dismiss these. I think by next year we will be just dismissing any kind of VR J-pop presentations. Here we have one called Horde of Plenty. It's irrelevant. It just doesn't have enough reviews. So we'll get rid of that. Here we have one. Is it still in early access? No. Is it free but it requires VR? Yes, that's why it's on the follow list still. Horror Squad is mixed, so we can get rid of that. Horror Stories Please Comply needs more time. We have about 30 more tabs. Horror Story Hallow Seed. Seems like there's a collection of horror games. $15.99. I guess the question is, do I really want to play these kind of horror games? And I'm going to give it more time and think about it, because I'm just not sure I do. Let's go ahead and go home here. And there definitely is some name confusion here between Horror Stories and Horror Tales. This is rated very positively, 9.79. I don't know what these really are, though. Are they just slightly more walking simulators? Am I interested in playing a horror walking simulator? yeah, I'm just not sure. A walking simulator with jump scares is really what I'm looking for. Horse Club Adventures needs more time, but it is getting positive reviews. I would really love to find more girl-focused games that are actually good. Horse Riding Deluxe, not so much, so it goes. It's a shame too that horse riding is so focused and pushed on girls when there really isn't any reason why boys shouldn't ride horses also. It is just oddly gendered for no reason. In all fairness, so many things are oddly gendered for in the other direction, but yeah, there's a lot of that, and that falls directly on elementary school teachers and parents, like that are teaching kids that there are things for boys and things for girls, and it falls on our current generations and future generations to really make sure we consistently put out the message that no, there isn't things specifically for boys or specifically girls, except for maybe in a few weird exceptions, and at this point I'm not sure if there really are any exceptions. I kind of wish this game was better reviewed, so I'm going to give it a little bit more time. I would like to play a hockey game of some sort that's decent. I know hockey is very popular outside the United States, or at least in Canada, and the North United States. But I haven't seen a really great video game to simulate hockey, and this one doesn't look too bad. Here we have Hot Pot VR, which is mixed, so we can remove that. Hot Pot for 1, on the other hand, is positive. Although I'm not sure I really see anything here other than the food. And at a certain point, if I just want to know more about Hot Pots, maybe I don't need to play a video game about that. This is $2.69. It's mostly positive, but it does just kind of feel like a cooking simulator. I'm just gonna leave this on the fall list and think about it some more. Here we have the Hotel Rock and Roll R&R, where you break as much stuff. Think in VR. It's rated very positively, and I could see why. Although kind of dangerous to swing your arms around potentially in VR. Here we have a game called House, which might be based off of that weird Japanese movie House from like the 1970s. Or might not. $3.74. Overwhelmingly positive. I can't see any reason why this shouldn't be put on the wish list, other than it's a little expensive. And it's really never been on sale. Price will be a factor when sales happen. Certainly. Here we have a game that's still in early access, so it needs more time. Here we have House of Rules, which is not early access. Looks like it's half horror, wander around, half puzzle game. Which may very well not be a game I really want to play, but I'll put it on the wish list anyways. Here we have House Sitter, which is not relevant enough. Just not enough reviews. And doesn't look particularly that interesting, so we can get rid of that. Here we have How to Bathe Your Cat, which looks like just a platforming game. No, actually this is one of those games where you move the pins and the water and the lava fall down. Which I don't know if there really is a reason why you would ever want to actually play that. But yeah, you draw a line, you put a bomb, you blow it up, and then the water physics takes the green stink lines away from him. I'll give this some more time since it came out in November. Halloween Hero needs more time. Human Constructor VR. I kind of want to say yes to this, and that's why it's still on the VR, even though nobody has ever reviewed it. Maybe we'll find a better one. Here we have a mostly negative game, Human or Virus, so we'll get rid of that. Probably barely runs. Humanity needs more time. Humankind is mixed, so we'll have to say no to that. 100 Days Winemaking Simulator is mostly positive. Is it in early access? No. Be a little weird to do a winemaking simulator, but I suppose that's better than just a general farming simulator. So I'll put that on the wish list. Hungarian Tea Party. Hungry Tea Party, not Hungarian. Boy, did I misread that. Looks like a weird thing. It's not available for sale anymore. Well, that's a suck. That sucks. Because people liked it. Instead, you have My Dear Frankenstein as a new game. And a free-to-play game. Wow. It's kind of crazy that the one game that people liked is the game that they had to remove for one reason or another, or they chose to remove for one reason or another. Apparently, it was available for a while. You also don't see that happen very often. That's basically the first time I've ever seen somebody remove a game that actually looks like it's decent. Here we have one called Hunt Down, which looks like a Contra clone. Doesn't look terrible. $7.99, not in early access, overwhelmingly positive, so we can add that to the wish list. It'll probably be a very long time before I need to do a wish list cleanup. Hunted Kobayashi Tower needs more time. Hunter Girls. It's pretty pixely as a game, but it's rated very positively. I think it's probably just cheap enough for that to potentially work, so I'm gonna put that on the wish list. I'd be iffy about this game though, with that zoomed out pixely look. Hunt Fest here is mostly negative, so we can just remove that. Huma, a censored game, rated positively. I don't know if there really is a reason to play a censored version of an adult game, though. That's just kind of like a mediocre beat 'em up game. A certain level, I would have to see. I'd have to assume that you would find something better as far as a hack and slash kind of Bayonetta clone in a more lewd perspective. I guess that would be what I would look for here. It's funny it's tagged as having nudity, but then it's also censored. Oh, and then there's a completely uncensored version, which kind of sucks to have to buy two different versions of a game. I think what I would do here is I gotta put the uncensored version on the wish list. And I think all the screenshots are the same anyways. And then this would have to be one of those adult games that I straight up would just have to play in some completely different way in which I wasn't showing the content or I was playing it blurred. Seems like there's a whole section that's more shown and explained in the uncensored version, in which you're capturing people, tying them up in your basement and slashing, torturing them. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all to buy a censored version just to cover it. If anything, I should play the uncensored version, and then if it was that great, buy the censored version to make footage from there. But then that's kind of disingenuous review. And you kind of have to tell people, yeah, I'm using the censored version to capture footage, but I'm actually reviewing and talking about the uncensored version. And then at a certain point, is that even fair use? Or are you just getting, or are you just being dishonest? That's another concern there. Here we have one called Hydroneer, which seems like it's a mining game, but not something particularly that interesting. $7.99 is rated very positively. I guess the question is, could I look at this and say, how does this really stack up to Minecraft? And that's, I guess, where I'd be thinking is, like, does this make sense? Or is this not really a full game? I'll put that on the wish list. We have 3 more tabs. Hyperblade, unfortunately, has no relevance as a drone flying game, which is fine because we found several other drone flying games since then. Hyperparasite is some kind of dungeon crawler, top-down twin-stick shooter. I kind of want to see this game in action before I make a final decision. Interesting. Not 100% sold on this, but I think it follows the rules enough that it should be on the wish list. And then one final game that needs more time. And then that's pretty much every game starting with H. And so next it would be just games starting with I, which I suspect there's not a lot of games that start with I next time we have some free time and can do a fall list cleanup. Plus, this leaves me in the perfect place now to try and program a script to open all of these links and then evaluate whether I need to actually look at them or not. Now the question is, can I get back to my main page? Yes, I can. Let's go down our Twitter feeds, and then that'll be it for this stream. Once again, didn't play a private match. I guess I could get an unranked victory on Portalcraft, and that wouldn't help me with this, but it's maybe better to just get a bunch of unranked victories instead of banging your head against ranked ones to at least get the temporary gems. That would be my thought, at least. But yeah, let's see. In the past 3 hours, 3 hours and 15 minutes, has there been any new game that's come out on Steam? No. Has there been anything new from GameDeveloper.com? No, because they haven't put anything out new since the 29th. Has there been anything new from Gamatsu? No, because they're in Japan, and so it's in the middle of the night there, or the evening. Has Video Games Chronicles put out anything new? No. They haven't done anything in 8 hours. And then my main Twitter feed. As far as the new year is concerned, like, it's ringing in a new year with hope is, I think, somewhat fairly related to how you felt about the current year or the old year going out. See, version 1.4 of PC Building Simulator is now available on the Epic Games Store, including a brand new free workshop, 30 series TI cards from NVIDIA, and a slew of ASRock motherboards, Cooler Master's latest AIO, cooling, and much more. Interesting. I wonder if that means that PC Building Simulator on Steam is not as updated. But yeah, I imagine not a lot of people are going to be super happy to celebrate right now, and they should social distance anyways for the New Year's. I imagine a lot of people will want to drink and get drunk, but I feel like there's going to be a lot more sad, lonely drinking this year than normal instead of big celebrations. Yeah, I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed. There is nothing new, which I'm not super surprised about. So that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.